what does it actually mean?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good question that was posed to me by a client this week. They were like, well, Pure Polyev, if they get in, they're going to eliminate the sales tax on homes. And I said, no, it's not homes. But, we had a brief chat about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all got to understand is that they're campaign promises. None of this is passed in the House. If you have a minority government, you'll need some support. I think you're looking at least 6 months plus before this becomes anything that any kind of Canadian purchaser is going to avail of.
Welcome to the Ottawa Property Podcast with your hosts Tony McNeil and Adolfo Alvarenga. Each week, they'll take a look at what's happening in the Ottawa real estate market and offer practical advice and insights for listeners. From market updates to success stories, they cover it all. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer, a seasoned investor, or just curious about the property landscape in Canada's capital, they've got you covered. Sit back, get comfortable, and let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Ottawa Property Podcast. My name is Tony McNeil. I am a realtor based here in Ottawa, Canada, joined always by my co-host ADOLFO Alvarenga, level 2 mortgage agent, also in Ottawa. Go figure.
Yeah,
We're both here together in Ottawa.
Government.
I should really switch up that script.
What are you going to say? We're going to say we're from the nation's capital. Can you change it to that?
Not bad. Eh? What do you guys think? Should we change it? Anyone? Script ideas? ChatGPT?
I think that's the thing we have to focus on.
If you're following on the audio platforms, thank you. Give us a like. Give us a share. Drop us a comment. Let us know, if you're appreciating the information and the ramblings of the two madmen that are sat before you today. We read all the comments and we respond, and we'd love to know if there's any specific topics you have in mind. We're happy to throw those in as well, guys. We just we're always looking for stuff to talk about.
Definitely.
That being said, Adolfo, what is up, man?
Oh, man, the market's ticking. The market is ticking up.
It's interesting, eh?
It's moving. Like what we were talking about like this a few weeks ago. Like Tony's like, hey, man, we got to do this, because like, come on, like it looks like your pipeline was like getting to the point that you're like worried about it. And now, how's your week?
It's been the busiest week of the year this week. I think
Tony rescheduled me 3 times for a meeting that we had to do.
I did.
3 times during the week. I'm like, okay, at least we got it done now. But that says to how busy you've been.
I'm that guy who's just always looking to push it down the line. You got to prioritize. I've done more showings this week with buyers than I have probably all year so far combined. Like I've been like nonstop. I mean, getting to work for like 9:30, and I'm getting home at 8:30 at night.
So, okay, let me ask you this: is it because of the multiple clients that you have to go see places for?
Yeah.
Or is it because of the multiple properties that clients want to go see?
Both. So multiple clients seeing multiple properties.
Okay.
And that's a good thing, right? Like one couple in particular, we've probably seen every detached home with a 2-car garage in Canada and Barrhaven this week. That's on the market. It's been intense. And they're awesome clients. It's a bit of a marathon because we're one after the other to try to get this thing done, and we're going to see another tonight. This is a third showing. We're going to bring mom and dad and show them as well.
Third showing, same property?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So keep you posted on that. I mean, it's probably a pretty high likelihood that they'll want to put an offer in this evening based on the amount of time we've spent at this one particular one. But I think it goes to show that you don't just see something one time and say, "Hey, I love that." And on the other hand, I have that exact same scenario where I just sent offer paperwork for another client. We saw a property yesterday afternoon for showing. Got a notification this morning from the listing agent that there was an offer submitted on the property. They're reviewing it at 4 p.m. today. I gave him a call. I said we booked a second showing for Sunday, and I'm like, listen, we got to make a decision today. Like we won't.
You won't have until Sunday to basically.
You might. Like there's nothing to say that offer will go through because I have seen some stuff fall apart this week too. But if you want to take a shot, like this is it. You can't unless you're not comfortable and you're okay to let it go, or to potentially let it go. And he's decided, no, I want to go for it.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's been intense. Another conditional offer with a different client on another beautiful home in Barrhaven. I'm really excited to do the home inspection on that one on Sunday. It's gonna be fun.
It's crazy how a week or 2 weeks time things change. And that's where I'm like, sorry, you're cutting me off.
No, it's okay. I'm cutting you off, or you're cutting me off?
You cut me off. I was talking. Anyways, it's interesting. Yeah,
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
it's interesting how like it's because things are moving one week to another, like from interest rates, from tariffs, from not, from this, from that, and like it's like people just don't know what to do. But then, like how we were saying, it's like if it fits your schedule, if it fits your timing. Like I've had this conversation with clients this whole week of like, hey, what do you think about what's going on? Do you think it's a good time to buy? And I'm like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
if it's fitting what your lifestyle, if you need to, or if it's fits your budget, totally.
Yeah.
But don't feel forced or don't feel like, oh, because I'm gonna miss the boat. It's
Let
not
me
gonna
ask you
happen.
this.
Okay.
You think I totally agree with you on that for sure. Like, you do what you got to do. And if it's a good time, then it's a good time. If it's not a good time, it's another story. But my question is, do you think that, like, we talked about the 24-hour news cycle in our last episode? Do you think people just become kind of numb to what goes on in the news? And, tariffs were a big thing and there was economic uncertainty that's still kind of looming. But do we just kind of say like, well, I've dealt with that, mentally, and I've accepted it, and I want to put that aside and just continue on. Like, are you numb to it a bit?
I agree. Yes, I think it's more of like, as humans, we sometimes have the memory of a goldfish,
Yeah.
and we kind of, as long as it's not just in the breaking news, it just happened. This is going on. It's been a few weeks,
Yeah.
from it, and like we'll see what happens April 1st, because that's when they're supposed to kick in, right? So depending on how that goes, like I feel like the first few weeks it's going to be the same thing, and then surprisingly then you have another rate announcement come in, so that's going to also like it, and this is where like
it's like a game of tug of war,
literally,
right?
it's like take give in that way, and it's interesting just because like it keeps you on your toes, and like anybody in the industry is like you got to be moving with it. You got to be on top of it. You got to be on top of the clients, on top of what they want to see. And it's like, I've had clients where like, they're in multiple offers, and I'm sure you've seen this already, and they've lost a couple of them due to multiple offers. Things are priced well, it moves.
100%.
And if it's a good home, like a friend sent me a property in the Glebe that's like, not in the Glebe, I think it's the Golden Triangle, but it's like 1.6 million for a big, massive house.
Sure,
like old school
brick.
house.
Yeah.
Very nice house, but it's dated. So it's interesting to what now the prices are in that area compared to beforehand.
Yeah.
Because like 1.6, okay, you can buy a 1.6 million in another neighborhood and it'd be like, whoa,
yeah,
of a home,
sure,
right?
Sure.
But it's location.
It's, I think, not to be the realtor that's sitting here pumping the market, because it's not what I'm about at all. I really mean that, but it's just based on what I'm experiencing in the last 7 days and maybe last 2 weeks, is it does seem like things are kicking up a notch. Like even the conditional offer we have in Barrhaven right now, with the inspection being Sunday, we were in competition on that one.
Yeah.
So like, hopefully not on the 3rd this week. I really hope. I'd love to go with, go into a negotiation with not competing with another offer, but 2 for 2 so far. I'm in competition.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, like, you're right. If something's priced well, if it shows well, like it doesn't like the one in Barrhaven, 2 days on market. The one we offered on today, I think it's like 9 days on market. So
that's interesting though, because like the year-to-year data was lower last month. Right?
Yeah, the sales volume is down 100%,
Wow.
10%, almost across the country, and certainly here in Ottawa it's like 9.4 or something.
Okay, so let me ask you this: do you think it's seasonal based on climate? Because like outside there's no snow, it's picking up
until tonight, 5 to 10 tonight. Sorry, we're not talking about the weather. There's not a
well,
weather
that's what
podcast.
I mean. Like, and I mean, like in a way of like, is it just because people are more out there now?
Yeah,
people
I
are
think
more
so.
walking. People are more seeing like, okay, now we got to make a move. In that way.
I think you're absolutely right. And we saw this last year in 2024, because once we got out of that down year in 2022, 2023, the market went back to that cyclical, seasonal, buying cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So spring tends to be the busiest month, or the busiest season, of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Summer, I think, will be a little slower again. Fall picks up again, and winter, Christmas is certainly slow, and then winter kind of picks up again.
Like
but
good, sorry.
But that's what I'm saying. I think to your point, I think you're right. The weather, I think we're back to that traditional real estate buying and selling cycle.
I think it's the thing of every year. Every year we're always having this conversation come this time of the year, March. Okay, what's going to happen this year? And then it just starts to pick up, slowly creep up and pick up,
Yeah.
March, February, March. Like, I think the only time that January and February has been very moving was prior, like, to 2022, like
Yeah, it was
2021,
gangbusters for sure.
2021 especially.
Yeah.
But like, it's just one of those things. Like, it's seasonal. It seems seasonal in that way.
But even last year, to your point, last year was a little bit. Even though the sales volume was up from where we are now, it was still down against the 5 and 10 year average. And the spring, and I know I'm doing air quotes for anyone listening, but the spring market was a bit later last year. Like we kind of bled into summer last year.
But summer was moving. Summer was a busy time.
Yeah, it was busy. Like, it was honestly for me, the summer and even late summer into fall was busier than the spring. So, I think that was the rebounding that had happened from the down year in 2023.
But I think that could also be because of the rates.
For sure. That's a very good point.
Like,
you're absolutely right.
The rates, that's when the rates started to drop.
Yeah. So it all works in tandem together.
Yeah.
But certainly not the crazy, rates come down, prices go up. We're still not seeing that. Like, even in the multiple offer situations that we've been in, we're not dropping conditions. We're not going crazy over asking. We just got to try to put together a plan that is appealing to the seller, but everyone feels protected moving forward, right?
Yeah, and that's important because, like, not dropping conditions and not going too much over asking. Like, there are some that have been going over asking, but you're not seeing the big amounts as you saw during the pandemic.
Yeah, and you're not seeing people. I think the inspections and the financing conditions are more important even than the price.
Totally, because you want a reassurance for it. And it seems more of a normal thing, which has always been a normal thing, right? Like,
100%.
You removing conditions, like, it was just a time of COVID for what we were doing in the market because you wanted to acquire something very quickly. But, like, for chats, like, I had this conversation yesterday, actually, with a realtor, and their client was going with no financing, just the inspection condition. Because the bank had already told them, oh, yeah, we're fine. And then even increased it, right? I'm not going to name the bank, but...
Do it.
No.
Name it.
No.
Come on.
Is
it red? Is it green? Is it blue?
There's more than that.
Is it blue and red?
I was going to say, like, you forgot a couple
ones. So it's BMO. Anyway,
I'm not going to say
kidding,
anything. But in the agent... So we're on the phone with the client, and then the agent's like, but did you get a pre-approval? And she's like, yeah, this is that. And I'm like, so I'm asking, and it's just a friend, right? I'm like, did they check your documents? And they go like, yeah, we sent him my notice of assessments. I'm like, no. Did they check your letter of employment, pay stub, like T4s, like check your credit, check all that stuff? No. I'm like, dude, what they give you was a pre-approval or pre-qual? And she's like, oh, she gave me the name. I kind of forgot what it is right now, but it sounded more of a pre-qualification. So obviously the realtor's like, no, what you need is a pre-approval. And then they luckily the offer wasn't really fully submitted. It was a counter. So they could still, like, it was submitted, but they counter back. So they hadn't accepted the counter yet.
Right.
But it's like,
did they reinsert the financing condition?
No. So now it's like they have to, I don't know.
They can work it in tandem with the home inspection. Like, let's be real. They can do that. But anyway, sorry, continue.
And that's what I think that's what they're thinking of doing. It's like they're just going to, not something that we recommend.
No,
but obviously
absolutely not. Because you're going to have to pay for that home inspection now.
Yeah, no matter what.
Right?
Because you need proof in case of anything. But
you can't back out of a home inspection that never happened.
Exactly.
I mean, I guess you could, but I mean, the realtor's going to be pretty, and the seller's going to be pretty frustrated.
Yeah, but you still have to do it, right? So, like, it's, I mean, at the end of the day, like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, it just, to each their own type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I keep saying, like, it's important for whoever you're going with that they check your documents, they check your credit before you put in that offer, because it's very important. It's so crucial. Like, if you have all your ducks in order, you can get you can get an approval in 24 hours.
Yep, sure.
As long as your ducks are in order. Like, as
you
long
can get it. You can do it, Adolfo.
I was gonna say I didn't want to. I didn't want to tell I did it, but you know, like, but that's where it's important, because it could mean one thing to the other, and we've seen it in the past where, like, oh yeah, everything's fine, but then when it actually comes to shove, and during COVID we saw it a lot. No financing condition, no inspection condition. How do the clients get out? Like, you there's no way out. But again, it's important to get your documents checked and revised. That's what I'll say.
That's scary, yeah, for sure. And I think because so many banks call it so many different things, like it's not a standard pre-qualification or pre-approval. They're not the same thing, and
No.
certain banks may call them like slightly different things. And if you're just the first-time home buyer, especially, like you don't know the difference. You're like, oh yeah, no, I filled out all the information on their website and I got a fancy certificate back in an email, and it's got this number on it. I'm good to go.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right; they didn't pull credit. They didn't do this. That's scary.
Yeah,
And it's
because like for our listeners, like the notice of assessment is the document you get from CRA confirming the total amount of income you did for the year. It doesn't state where that income came from.
Yeah.
So it could be rental income, it could be previous income that you had.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's like your employment salary income, and then at the same time it doesn't state what way you're getting paid, which is important. So if your salary hourly, like those are changes completely the approval aspect of it.
And let's not talk about like student loans, car payments. None of that's being taken into consideration as well, right?
Yes, yeah, and that's also a thing too. If the credits are not run, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I think we're getting into the busier season. You really need to be like prepared and have these conversations up front, because if you're just going in blind to these types of things, or you're not getting proper advice, you're opening up a whole other can of worms for yourselves. You're exposing yourself. You're exposing your deposit that you put down on this property. Like there's some big ramifications that can come of this. That I wish there was more education in the space, and that could be from like an educational level, like even in high school or university, whatever that looks like. There's just not enough. There's not enough. People just don't know, and unfortunately, like not all realtors or mortgage agents or mortgage brokers are okay with taking the time to explain this all to you. Maybe they just assume and it's just not okay, right?
It's an incorrect assumption, right?
100%.
But it depends on like the realtor that you are, or the mortgage agent or mortgage professional that you are, because it's not just agents too, right? So
yeah, I agreed. So here's my thing. In talking about agents that don't have their shit together.
We're doing it?
Yeah, I think so. Because I honestly, it's just this story that we kind of touched on at the end of the pod last week. It's kind of still unfolding. I mean, this property hasn't closed yet, but by the time this podcast comes out, it should be a done deal. So I'm just going to throw it all out there. If it doesn't close,
Tony,
you may not have to air this one, or I'll have to cut it out.
Skip a week. Tony's been having this close to his heart.
Yeah. And I know
why, but okay.
Yeah, I will say like 80% of the people we work with in the industry, other realtors and agents, mortgage brokers, whatever, are above board, super professional people. Like there's a lot of really good realtors in the city. And like in any industry and any aspect of life, there are some really bad ones. You probably have a coworker that you're like, man, that guy doesn't pull his weight. Or you have, someone, anyway, whatever. Someone in some walk of life where you're like, how do they get on doing that every day to day, and no one calls them out on this stuff? So Adolfo had introduced me to a gentleman who needed to sell his property. We listed for him. It was much more challenging than I thought it was going to be after some stuff was revealed in the status certificate about some potential asbestos in some of the drywall compound, or the mud that they used to bind the drywall together. But anyway, two offers that died later. I mean, we had inspections and people walked away. We get a third buyer. This agent, from the start, it was, again, you can just tell who the professional and who isn't. And it comes down to communication, whether it's text messages or the way someone speaks to you on the phone. We're not talking about pennies here. We're not talking about trading for candy bars. Yeah. Like this is a serious amount of money, and this is people's livelihoods and their deposits. Like it needs to be treated very, very seriously. Yep. This agent, gave me some go around, not being able to access the lockbox. She's from out of town. Seemed to think it was my duty to drop everything I was doing to come let her into this property. And he just said, listen, if you're going to be touring homes in a city that you're not from, like you need to be prepared on how our systems work here. Yeah. I said, I'm sorry, I can't drop everything I'm doing right now in the middle of a Sunday to do this for you. But I'm happy to, the next day or the day after we can. Oh no, it was a holiday Monday.
It was
That's family day. It was family day.
Oh yeah, it was family
Yeah.
day actually.
So I was like, no, I'm going to be with my family on family day. Like I very
Yeah.
much have plans, and that's how it is. My family comes first, and if anyone knows that about me, you know it to be true. So fast forward to them finally getting into the property. They did submit an offer, and I've been doing this a long time, and this person is running a brokerage. It was some of the sloppiest paperwork I've ever seen.
So were they running a brokerage or are they a broker?
Broker of record.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Interesting. Oh
Mm-hmm.
wow.
So, and I in the end, I'm there to work for my clients. So you know what? I went to work on that offer regardless of how bad it was, and I went through and I corrected all the mistakes and all the missing information. I re-added it in, had everyone initial it, but the timelines weren't there. It was a bit of a stubborn negotiation. Like some of it was signed back to me. It just didn't make actually any sense. Like there was numbers signed back, crossed out, and nothing re-added in. Like it didn't. A lawyer would look at this and be like, "This is nonsense. I can't follow the timeline on this." So it was late at night, and I just said, "Listen, this is not going to go anywhere. We're too far apart on these issues. Like my guy's not going to sign it back to you. He just wants to let it go for the evening. And if you wish to resubmit in the morning, you can do so, but please resubmit and clean up all this stuff in your paperwork." Was not well received.
On the other end?
Yeah, they were not happy with me. It is what it is. Sometimes we get heated. It's easy to get emotional as agents sometimes too. We want to work in our client's best interest. We want to get a deal done. But I need to, like I said, work in the best interest of my client. And if he tells me, no, let it go for the evening, that's what it is. Right?
Yeah, of course.
So fast forward, I actually went out of town on vacation the next day. So we had my colleague Leo stepping in to handle it, and they put a deal together. And I saw the paperwork; it was all cleaned up, which I did respect. It looked much better, right?
Okay.
And the terms were agreed upon. It was all good. It was conditional. There was a home inspection happened. No word from that. And then this is the funniest part. I mean, the day of firming. So anyone listening, when your conditional period is over, if you want to fulfill those conditions and remove them from the offer, you become firm and binding. You can't, there's very little recourse to be released from that deal once that happens. So I sent her, I think that we were due to firm at about 8 p.m. And I just sent her a message around 4. I was like, haven't heard from you, just checking in. Can we expect to be firm today? And I was responded with a text message that said, we don't have the status certificate. And I just
the day off. You're talking. This is 4 hours before firming up, and also 1 hour before like everything closes.
Yeah. And I want to say as well that this is not a 7-day conditional period. Like we had agreed to almost a 14-day conditional period.
Oh wow!
But we did have a first right of refusal in there. And for those that don't know, it was the ability for us to keep the property on MLS and marketed it in the best interest of our seller. We didn't want to take it off the market and market conditional, because showings tend to stop, interest rise up a little bit.
Yeah,
and we had already lost 2 offers, so we got to fight for him and his ability to do that. So anyway, I said, we don't have it. I mean, I don't understand. Like, I'm very perplexed as to why you waited until now to tell me you didn't have it. And I was confronted again with a very combative attitude of like, you didn't send it to me. And I was very calm, and I just said, it's not my job to chase you down to give you documents that you should be requesting from me. Like I told you I had it, and like maybe there was a little bit of a gap in me going away and my colleague stepping in, but I followed up with him as well, and he told me that he had it in writing that she said that she had it.
I have a question there though.
Go ahead.
And just for like those not knowing or like listening and like are not aware of this, isn't the lawyer the one that's supposed to request that status certificate?
No, it can be like, it depends how it's written. The condition could say like at the seller's expense or at the buyer's expense. In which case, like a buyer can request it themselves. They have to pay for it, and then it would be delivered right to whatever email they submitted. The lawyer doesn't actually have to request it.
Okay.
The way these conditions work, though, like if I request it on behalf of my seller and give it to the buyer, there's not actually much legal recourse the buyer could use against someone in that situation if there was an issue, because they didn't actually request it themselves.
Oh, okay.
So that the person who requests it is kind of
It's
like
responsible.
yeah. So it's recommended that if you're the buyer, you should request it yourself, because you have the ability to use the document as you wish. Then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're just kind of reviewing something that was never
That you don't know.
addressed to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Or you don't know if it could have been edited in any way.
Yeah. I know. I'll try to keep it. I'm sorry, guys. This is a long story, but it's not over yet. So whatever. We passed the certificate. We had to sign an amendment to extend the conditions by another couple of days because this lawyer wasn't able to review it quickly. A bit of BS in my opinion. You know, I know enough lawyers that if you want to call them up and say, hey, can you do me a favor and get this done today? It would get done today. Okay. Status certificate was sent. They finally fulfill the conditions. We're firm. You know, it was worth the wait. We did have another couple of agents kind of waiting to see what happened, because as proactive agents and a team that we are, I didn't have a good feeling about it. Wasn't sure it was going to go, and I just wanted to do what's best for my seller. And if that one wasn't going to work, then I needed someone to kind of step in right after. So, my gosh, where am I going with this one? There was something else in the middle that I'm forgetting.
That you're forgetting, or that
Yeah.
she? Well,
Well,
it's
maybe
the one
not
that she
me.
confused.
I'm forgetting the story. Yeah.
Isn't she confused the properties?
Yes. Sorry. Thank you so much. So, you're absolutely right. We had checked in at another point. I can't remember what I was checking in for. I was looking for the lawyer's information. So
Yeah,
our
for
lawyer
the
was like, "Who
closing.
are they using? We
For
need
the
to know who
closing
we're going to
date.
communicate on this with." And
Mhm.
I'm like, "I'll get that for you." So I sent 2 or 3 emails, text messages, phone calls, no response. I just keep persistently trying. Like, I need the information. Like, our lawyer needs to know who they're coordinating all this closing stuff with. And she wrote me back and said, "I sent you an amendment to extend the closing by a month." And that was and I was like, what? No. I'm like, we didn't talk about this. Like, what do you mean? Like, I need context. Why are you requesting this? It can't just be, I'm sending you this, sign it, no questions asked. Like,
Yeah.
it's not what we're about here.
No, there's no negotiation at that point. It's just like, oh, ultimatum.
This is
Sent you-
crazy. You're firm and binding. Like,
Dictatorship.
we need to know what's going on here, right? Especially because if it means my client is going to be paying the mortgage for another month, property tax for another month, condo fees for another month, utilities, like, he's going to have to be compensated for this.
Yeah, for sure.
So later that evening, after no response to my messages, I get another amendment, and it was like, she's like, "I sent it to you. Please have a look." And I'm like, it's not even for the right property. She copied me and sent it to another realtor on another deal she was doing. Like, she thought I was someone else. I'm like, I get it, mistakes happen, but you know, the cracks are really starting to show here. Like, nothing's good I don't have any good feelings about this whatsoever. And I just said, I'm like, listen, this is not for me. I'm like, I'm not the agent for this. And the worst part was, in my text messages, I had put the address
For it, okay.
yeah, our address in it. And so it's like, it's hard to mistake that. Anyway, whatever. Stuff happens. So we're good. Closing's not changing.
But her response, if I remember correctly, was, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. We're closing."
Yeah, it was pretty much that. Like, oh yeah, no big deal. Whatever. I tried not to think too much about it. It was late at night. I was just like, this is not surprising me whatsoever. So the last kind of thing, it was the straw that broke the camel's back for me today, and kind of why it feels good to get it off my chest, is that, you know, this property is set to close at the beginning of next week. And I got a text message from the buyer this morning. So not my client, it's her client texting me saying, "Hey Tony, I need your help with the insurance on the property." And I'm you know, obviously want to figure out what's going on and help this person get the ball rolling. They need insurance to show that the lawyer, they have insurance in order to close on the property. They won't be able to do it. So I said, "Listen, your agent asked me about all this, and I provided the information that I had, and I'd let them know that any other information that they were looking for would be in the home inspection report that you guys did." And it's still kind of going back and forth in a few text messages here. Like, they're still trying to contact me to see how I can help them, but I just don't know what to say, guys. And it's not to bash on anybody here. I just want to illustrate a purpose to anyone listening, anyone thinking about, hiring someone or not, or going solo, or maybe you're doing it through a friend of a friend. You know someone you've been doing this. You don't maybe have any solid proof that they've been doing it well. Like, do your homework.
Yeah.
If it's not going to be one of us that you use, like, just make sure you got someone who's going to go to bat for you, work hard for you. It doesn't even frustrate me that, this person is going to close and they'll get paid. Like, it is what it is. I feel bad for the buyer because they're not the level of service and due diligence and duty that agent owes to that person is not at all what they're getting.
Yeah.
And we got to hold each other accountable as realtors and mortgage agents and anyone in the adjacent industries. Like, you just got to do better. Like, we're not talking about candy bars. Like, this is a lot of money.
You're not buying a t-shirt. So it's most of the time it's the only big sale an individual does in their life. It's the biggest purchase.
Yeah, exactly.
So like it's like you said, we have to hold each other accountable to a higher standards. Like, you have to do what's best for the interest for the client at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And do it as professionally and as good as you can. Like, I'm not gonna say like, we're not doing rocket science here.
No, but it's not hard.
And
it's not
like
hard
you said,
surgery. It's not of the above.
Yeah, and like you said, like, people make mistakes. It's sort of understandable, but that just seemed so many consistent mistakes of it. Like, from the first time that they couldn't get into the property, to then putting the offer, to then the closing, the amendment, to then like now the insurance. It's like, it's just one thing after the other that just kind of feels like, okay, what's going on? Like, why are you dropping like so many things? It's like, and no offense to anybody, but like, if it was a server, and then every time they would just drop something and keep dropping something at that point, like, the restaurant owner would be like, what the hell is going on?
But what if the server is the restaurant owner?
I mean,
they're the broker of record. Like, they're not going to fire themselves, man.
No, but then that would be a less profitable restaurant. I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah. I kind of ranted about it to my partner at home, and she was just saying, like, the industry needs to have more accountability from that perspective of, like, consumers making complaints and stuff. And I said, there is a process for it, but it's not. I don't think it's very often that people know about it first and foremost, which is interesting because now we have the RICO guide to working with a realtor, so they do make that more evident in the paperwork that you sign up front.
Okay.
But before that document, I mean, you can still place a complaint about it, anybody, and they'll follow up on it, and there's usually some fines involved if it's justified and the claims are substantiated. But
you need evidence.
Yeah, of course, right?
Like, it's like, who, as a seller or as a buyer, like a seller, I think would be probably more realistic that will happen, but as a buyer,
especially if you're first time, you don't really have anything.
You don't really know.
To.
You just think that might be the reason. Like, I've had mortgage clients who came to me for the purchase. We did all that, and then at the refi or the renewal, they went to somewhere else just because of the rate.
Yeah.
And then now they're coming back to me on the next one because the experience they had with the other one wasn't great. Yeah. And it just happens. Like, some professionals have a higher, not necessarily higher degree, but more of like, they just live it on a day-to-day, and they want to provide the best service they can, quick turnarounds, quick things going, and professionally done, right? But others are not necessarily in the same pace. And it happens in all industries. Like, I'm not just saying in our world, right?
It's frustrating. But I mean, it's just a lesson learned. We witness it all the time. And this sounds so cliche and maybe a bit silly, but like, it just justifies what we do as a team and kind of makes us feel better about it doing day to day when this poor guy is going through it, but he probably doesn't even know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey. Well, hopefully it closes.
Yeah.
That's going to be our win on Monday.
Well, if this episode gets posted, it closed. And if not, it didn't.
I mean, that is true.
Okay, let's pivot. I want to do one last, not a last thing, but I want to just chat about one thing that's it's all over the news, and it's going to be the buzz for the next 30 days is this federal election. Mm-hmm. And not to be overly political, because it's not something that we're not picking sides here, but we want to compare. I think it's safe to say that there's two main parties, in a dogfight for the right to rule the country at a federal level. The Conservative Party, led by Pierre Poilievre. And
you make it sound as if we're choosing a king and be like,
oh,
who's going to rule
the Canada? No. or you have Mark Carney and the Liberal Party's platform, and they're both pretty similar. It does seem that whatever one does, the other one kind of mimics and tweaks it just a little bit. Like they are tit for tat on this, and I mean the polls are showing one thing, but you don't know until people hit the voting booths and actually cast their ballot on what this is going to be. So obviously the tariffs are a big factor on both. More so, I think, for the Liberals. They kind of be addressing that because they're obviously still in power right now, and they're reacting even today to these 25% auto tariffs that are going on. But anyway, we want to talk about housing because this is a real estate podcast, right?
Yeah.
Last time
not politics, please.
But I want to compare, and this has happened this week. They both released this. So previously, Pierre Poilievre had come out and said, "I'm going to eliminate GST, HST for homes under $1 million, and I believe that was for any buyer." Mark Carney came out and he matched that. And he said, "I'll do it for $1 million new homes for first-time home buyers." Then Poilievre upped the ante, and he came back and said, "I'm going to do it for homes up to $1.3 million, no tax for anybody."
Anybody.
Yeah.
So not just first-time home buyers.
Not just first-time home buyers. Any buyer. So it's pretty interesting, right? Because I understand their reasoning for bumping it up from $1 million to 1.3, because if you're in a market like Toronto or Vancouver, it's an expensive market.
Yeah.
Even if you're in Mississauga, Brampton, Milton, Kitchener, Waterloo, even you're getting into that $1 million, for that detached house, the newer build stuff. In Ottawa, it's a little bit different. Homes over $1 million obviously still exist here, but it's a kind of like you hit the final leg of the journey at that point. You're getting into like the 4 and 5 bedroom detached stuff in the suburbs, or maybe
like the forever homes, basically.
Yeah, or unless maybe you're an investor and you're looking at a triplex or a multiplex, something like that would probably fetch that price too. I have seen some duplexes though, kind of bridge the 800 to 900, so we're getting there for sure. But what does it actually mean? So this is a good question that was posed to me by a client this week. They were like, well, Pierre Poilievre, if they get in, they're going to eliminate the sales tax on homes. And I said, no, it's not homes. It's new homes. It's not any home. I think it would be more impactful if it was any home. But there's, HST is usually included in our sales price. There's probably ways to circumvent this. But, we had a brief chat about it. I think we all got to understand is that they're campaign promises. None of this is passed in the House. And that's what I said to them, like, guys, because they were like, maybe we should hold off, is what they were saying, until, like, we see where this goes. And I said, okay, I hear you. I totally acknowledge what you're saying. But if you wait, and whoever takes party, red or blue, they're going to have to pass that.
Yeah.
If you have a minority government, you'll need coalition support. You'll need support from one of the other parties. Obviously, not the opposition. Maybe the opposition. It depends how it's packaged. But I think you're looking at least 6 months plus before this actually becomes anything that any kind of Canadian purchaser is going to avail of.
It's just, think about it in a way of like the capital gains tax. Like,
what capital gains tax?
Exactly. How many people sold trying to get to the point of they're going to avoid that? So
sucks, man. It sucks.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, it's just because it's being mentioned or just because it's being said, it doesn't quite say like, oh, this is what's going to happen. Like, to your point, like, what capital gains tax and how it got completely flipped. So it's just because they're campaign promises, it doesn't mean that they're going to end up getting executed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and I think that's something we need to heavily consider. Not the fact that it would take even as long as I quoted, but you're right. It may not even actually ever become a thing.
Yeah. And then we go back to what we talked about last episode, which is like, if the whole city or everybody knows about it, do they just adjust their pricing to make it,
Exactly. How does it implement it? How do you benefit from it in the closing aspect of it? What I was kind of like contemplating in my head is that, you're making these homes more affordable. That's great, man. We've stressed that on the podcast that we are all about making the home buying experience, or whatever you want to call it, more affordable. This, I fear, will actually drive prices up. And I think that because it all comes back to this supply and demand. If you make the new homes cheaper, will people buy them? Yeah, almost most certainly. If it's significantly more affordable, it may be a good option for them. Developers will do better, they'll make more money, but they still can't build them fast enough. So if you put all this pressure on this industry again, builders, if you come to them and they have a lineup out the door, prices will go up overnight. If they go up overnight in the new home space, resale is almost always surely going to follow in that exact same trajectory.
And it's because the ones that wanted new homes that couldn't get into it are going to still want to buy something and they just move to the next one.
Yeah. Well, builders kind of set the trend for home pricing, man. There's a lag between both of those sectors within the industry. Builders set prices up here. So, if a builder say if it costs $1 million to build a 4-bedroom detached house in Barhaven, and you can buy a resale right now, the exact same floor plan, same model from the same builder, but it's 2 or 3 years older. I mean, it's probably going to be a little bit less. But now, if that builder increases their pricing from 1 million to 1.1, wouldn't you assume that other one would go up the same amount, but just slightly after that? Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight, but I mean, this is simple economics. We just don't talk about it enough. Whether we want to believe it to be true, I promise you that the builders are setting the bar for where the pricing goes, and they will push it to the bloody limit because it's a bottom line. It's a business that they're running.
Yeah, it's profitability, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah, and it's like, I understand they play a very integral role in our industry and our communities here, but I mean, they're not doing it pro bono.
No, of course not. Like they wouldn't even start projects if it was like that.
Nope. You talked about it last episode.
Yeah.
Right. If it's too expensive to do, they just won't do it.
Yeah.
The bottom line isn't good enough, they'll wait.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's the hard part is coming to a correct answer.
Yeah, we're speculating hard here, but I think, given our experience, I think it's fair to say, man, I don't see it going any other way.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wins in this. And we just need to build more homes, and that's it, man. And whether that's affordable homes or unaffordable homes, I don't know what other way to put it, but we just need more of them.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Like, Pierre Poilievre, I think one of his campaign promises was that, he plays it as like a simple economic equation, I think is what he said. Where like, I will build more homes than we let in immigrants. He's like, and then eventually we'll catch up. And in theory, yeah, that does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what about our own population growth within the country? Like, what about the families that are like already 2 and 3 generations living under one roof because that's all they can afford? Like, those people are going to put pressure on the market too. Like,
But then I think what he's saying is just to have extra added pressure towards
I
it.
get it. I get it. Sounds good in front of a microphone, in front of a group of reporters on CTV at 5 p.m.
Exactly. And this is the thing. It's the execution, right? It all comes to execution and all the promises, all the announcements that are done. Like, it's not easy.
No. And I just, we want to, it's just such a big onion that you're trying to peel back the layers on. But like, we need taxes to afford not only hospitals and education, but the roads and the infrastructure for all these new developments, man. Like, it's just, there's no catch-22 in lowering taxes and building homes. Like, I just don't think they go hand in hand together.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. Like, I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible in the outcome of this, but I just hope we can build more homes.
Hopefully.
I don't know, man.
We'll see. Hey, we'll see what happens.
Such a doom and gloom way to end it, isn't it? I'm so sad, guys.
We went from a rant to this. It's okay.
Yeah, well, I just want to be real with people listening. Like, anyone thinking, maybe people are probably wondering, sales volume's down. Why haven't prices come down? This is exactly why prices haven't come down.
Yeah.
And that's just me being very straight with you. When people are telling me, oh yeah, well, the market will soften, we'll get back in we'll get in when it's a better time, when prices are more affordable and interest rates come down. I'm like, that's never going to be a scenario that you see. Unless there's some kind of catastrophic world event again. And even still, we saw that in the pandemic, and people were like, holy cow, we're never going to sell any homes. the market tanked. Like, what are we going to do? And then all of a sudden, it was a hockey stick effect, man.
That lasted 1 week.
Honestly.
That panic
Yeah. Well, maybe a
lasted
month. Yeah.
1 week.
Yeah.
Once we adjusted into how we do showings, how we did the offers, how we did done.
So unless there's like like I said, another like geopolitical catastrophe.
Catastrophic.
Catastrophe.
I mean, I'm yourself.
We just won't see it, man. And even still, I think, it will correct. Just like we saw all this economic uncertainty with the U.S. at the beginning of the year into February and March. Now we're at the end of March, and people are just kind of thinking like, okay, well, this is the new norm. I'm going to have to adjust and continue on with my buying and selling plans.
Yeah, which, like I said, it's just short-term memory.
Yeah, and watch what happens. I make another prediction, because you don't know, I make a lot of predictions on this show. It's one thing I like to do. I predict, up the lead up until April 2nd, when these impending tariffs are set to come in, will be very, people will be apprehensive, hesitant to put anything on paper. Obviously, there's still some stuff being done, as I've described this week, but after April 2nd, we will also have a new federal government, whether it's the new Liberal Party or the Conservatives or NDP or Green, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You will have a government that's going to be able to lay out a clear mandate to deal with Donald Trump. Give that a few weeks' time, and I guarantee you everything settles. The man just wants to be appeased down here. You got to stroke his ego. These tariffs will not be a thing for the next 4 years. The market's going to calm down by the end of April, and people are going to be motivated to do stuff. I guarantee it. Mark it down. You heard it here first. I truly believe it.
I mean, that's the prediction of the week.
The century.
I mean, we'll see what happens next week. Things are changing on a weekly basis, so let's see what goes on.
And just to be even more doom and gloom, folks, to wrap things up, our Blue Jays, 12-2 in the home opener against the Baltimore Orioles.
Oof, that was hard.
Sad.
That was hard to watch.
Pain.
Yeah.
It's one of the best times for sports, though. You got playoff hockey. Sens are looking like they're going to make the playoffs.
Playoff hockey, playoff NBA.
Yeah. We beat the
Starting
Detroit
of
Red Wings
MLB.
last night.
Hey.
Yeah. No, I'm saying golf is starting up again. I love watching golf, too.
I mean,
You ever play?
I literally just, for the first time last week, I
swung
a club.
Okay. How'd
First
that go?
Wasn't bad.
No,
natural.
no one says that.
I wasn't too bad. I promise. Like, obviously, the first few ones were terrible, but like we did it in a virtual, and like I was connecting well. Then it just went.
Dang, guys,
consistency.
we're gonna have to go.
We should actually.
I'd love to, man.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do that. We'll plan that.
Yeah, but it's the best time for sports, and I think it's a good time for real estate too. We just got to chat about it. So
definitely.
if there's anything you want to know, give us a call. We appreciate you checking us out today. Follow us, like us, share it, comment. We listen. We appreciate you. And next week, we'll come back with maybe some happier topics. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Not our best.